Smiley, bring it back to summer camp because everything goes back to summer camp. I've heard the term, I wish I coined it myself, but campfires in cyberspace. When the internet, first came out, I think it was Dr. Thornburg or something. I was in my former life, I was a teacher for many years, and there was campfire in cyberspace where it's the water cooler or it's the literal campfire at summer camp where you get to tell stories and you get to fantasize and the imagination runs wild, or you're marshmallows and you're next to a bunkmate or somebody who isn't in your bunk or isn't in your age group. And that kind of magic, that's where that spark happens. But in the workplace, back to that stigma, or we'll take care of belonging after we handle all that stuff. Let's face it, it's a more complex, more complicated time we live in. And it requires a little bit more matter-of-fact awareness around, with all the apparatus, all the distractions, all the disconnections and connections in the world. Leaders, supervisors, managers, call them what you want. They have to bring that awareness and that consciousness to, if you're bringing people in, that it's not like, oh, we're going to be a conference services team and you come into the office, so I'm going to make this Lollapalooza event for you. But you do have to artfully integrate it in, systematize it in a way where it's attractive, appealing. It's not overdone like it's bowling night or something, but you know what I'm saying?
It has to be intentional. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you actually have to design for human connection. And it's not enough to just say like, oh, it's networking time. So that's like kind of the usual way people handle this. It's like, this is a break, right? So like, if you and I look at conference agendas every day and it'll say break, networking. And it's like, okay, yes, like you and I are both extroverted people that can probably talk to almost anyone about almost anything, but not everyone is like that.
Yeah.
And I think what you're seeing now is that companies and conferences that are really thinking about this more creatively are designing activities to bring people in. And not everyone has to love the same thing, and not everyone's going to be excited about the same thing, but there's a multitude of options for different people to connect around interests, ideas, whatever it is, whatever experiences. I think you're seeing that a lot, especially if you're only getting your team together once a year, twice a year, right? Once a quarter. It used to be that people would see each other almost daily, right? If people are only seeing each other, many of the events I speak at, people are like, I haven't seen this person in 2 years, or they maybe haven't met them yet. That has to be, and if you just only go with content and it's just back-to-back content, every single presentation, and not have the time for connection, those interactive experiences, whether it's speakers, whether it's facilitated activities, things that people haven't seen before, creating the time for the unexpected, seeing your leader do something they've never done before, whether it's karaoke or doing something silly or playing or trying something different or getting on stage, whatever it is, those are the opportunities that people talk about the rest of the year.
Yeah. And right. So the intentionality around it, and then have it, there has to be consistency to it. Right?
Consistency is key.
Right. Like ongoing, and, it's like you almost, hey, I don't need to plan connection, but you kind of do.
Has to go in the calendar. There's a lot of research around that, like the near exposure effect. Like the more that you see someone, the more that there's a cadence. This is why people, have a book club, right? It's like, oh, meeting monthly and I got to read the book and I'm going to Susan's house and then we're going to Amanda's house, because it's like, you're looking forward to it. It's on the calendar. It's not a one-off. If it's a one-off, it's like, maybe we'll hang out. If it's a book club, you're like, I'll see you every week. So when it's kind of like this thing that's a series and it's ongoing. Yeah. And then the other thing I think that's really important, because people sometimes feel overwhelmed by connection, right? And they're like, oh, I would do a lot of things that you say, Smiley, I just don't have time.
Yeah.
And that's fair. Like I feel that we're in this wall-to-wall Zoom meeting kind of world. And I always say, to the extent that you can, incorporate connection into the things that you're already doing. They're already on the calendar. They're already scheduled. They're already planned. So if you can take that 1 minute, 5 minutes would be great. 10 minutes, amazing. Even if it's 1 minute at the start of a meeting to do that check-in, Is
Mhm.
something is anything on your mind?
Yep.
Does somebody want to share? Has anything come up for you? Didn't you learn anything
Yeah.
while we were working on this project? Or anyone have anything that they want to get off their chest? Whatever it is, those moments are so essential because you're building connection, and it's not like we have to schedule another thing or another
Right.
meeting.
Right.
It's like nobody has time for that. And the other thing I think leaders can do that's really important, again, this does require a little time blocking, but just office hours. Being available for people to talk about, ask questions, to come without an agenda, just to chat, even just knowing that you have those office hours,
Right.
they
Right.
feel a connection, even if they never take you up on it or they don't come
Right.
Thursday at
Just
10
the
a.m.
existence of it.
The existence makes you accessible, makes you more
Yeah.
transparent, makes you feel like you are open to connection and communication and collaboration.